Hi everyone, I've got James Clayfield here with me today. He's a co-founder of PlayerLayer. He's got a couple of children at independent school, a boy and a girl, and I thought it'd be really good to speak to James today about giving us an insight about what parents think about school sport and how that could maybe help directors of sport. So thanks for joining us, James. What sort of insights would you give us?
Hi, Chris. I guess the first one is most parents will choose to send their children to a private school for more than maths, science, and English. Whether it's the extracurricular, whether it's the sport, whether it's the music. So for those children, those parents that have sporty children, they are choosing a school, and a big part of that decision-making process will be on that sport offering. So I think it, I think the good news for directors of sports, you're in a really important position, and parents really value what the sports side, what sports brings to that school and to the experience that the children have. So for me, um, the biggest thing that I would suggest with parents is to control the narrative. Now, what I mean by that is if most people like to be led. So if we don't lead, then the parents will fill the void, and the WhatsApp groups, there'll be plenty of people on WhatsApp groups talking and leading conversations. Whereas if actually we control that as a department, we control that narrative, then I think it will lead to an easier way of communicating and having parent relationships. So we always had the philosophy of get to them before they get to you, and that was with customers. So if something had gone wrong with a customer, we wanted to get to them before um, they got to us. And I think it's the same with parents. So whether that's choosing sports teams or whether it's deciding what is going to be part of the curriculum in a year, or whether you're indoors or whatever it is, if you've given the parents a reason to do something, 9 times out of 10, they're happy with that. So that would be the first insight, is control the narrative.
And what sort of ways do you think directors of sport could do that, James?
Okay, well, I think let's give an example of a prep school. So if you've decided that you want to give everyone the opportunity to play multi-sport in a year. So let's say historically they've played only hockey, boys have played hockey and girls have played netball, but you've decided that everyone is going to play both for a term, let's say. Then I think, especially when you're talking to old fuddy-duddy parents, some of them might come to the wrong conclusion as to why you want to do that. So if you lay out as a director of sport, if we've laid out um, the desired outcome of why you've got boys playing netball, like for an example, and it could be to improve their movement, spatial awareness, learning new movement patterns, whatever it is, parents 9 times out of 10 will be bought into it. So that's one example. Another example could be, let's say that you're in a performance environment now, and it's the first you're in the A team, your son or daughter's in, or let's say it's your son in the A team rugby, and they're a strong team winning every match. If a team goes through a season unbeaten 100%, then the chances are we haven't stretched them to their ability. So actually, a successful season should be where they're right at the edge of the comfort zone, and in a couple of those games they may have lost. It's important that we control the narrative to parents in that regard, because again, what they might think winning is everything. Well, it depends what your definition of winning is. So whether there's a couple of examples there of, your 6, 7 year olds and your children at the other end of the spectrum, but in both cases, get to parents before they get to you.
Yeah, we were discussing that. I think that's such a good point because I might be teaching netball to my year fives because I want them to develop their leadership skills or their feedback skills, or actually they might find this difficult, so they might be improving their learning skills. And if we explain this to parents, it's a lot easier. And obviously, we know that multi-sport is really good for children's development. So again, I like that idea of you know, controlling the narrative. And of course, we have so many opportunities to meet with parents and sport teachers, don't we, on the touchline? What sort of interactions do you think, therefore, we should be, as directors of sport ourselves, but also encouraging our staff to have with parents on the touchline?
Well, I completely understand how busy sports departments are. So I think, people might be listening thinking, crikey, I'm already at 100%. I don't want to take on more communication, but actually you could almost reduce the problems by getting ahead of the wave. If you're surfing the wave, everyone largely, there'll always be the exception, but everyone largely will kind of fall into line with that. And the other thing, so a parent's paying between 20 and 40,000 a year per child, let's say, for an independent school experience. They're wanting an element of personalization to that. So I think now that doesn't mean more work. That shouldn't mean more workload for PE departments at all. But again, it's that proactive approach of explaining why, and it could be 5 minutes at the beginning of a year saying, I understand Johnny's excellent at rugby. In order to help him with his rugby, there's going to be times this year where he's going to be doing X, Y, and Z to develop his leadership skills, for example. And that will be enough. That will be enough to kind of keep the parent informed and feel like everything has a purpose. And that's the other premise, is that practice makes permanent, and practice with intention. So if parents feel that there's a reason why something's happening, 9 times out of 10, they're fully bought in.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some schools and some teachers actually involve parents in the team talk before a game and after the game, which I think is very useful. We had a thing at my last school where the boys would decide a few things they wanted to do in a game, 3 things. They'd write them on a whiteboard and then go and show them to the parents for the game. So straight away now the parents know what those boys are trying to achieve. It made them happier and also controlled, if you like, the car journey on the way home. And again, I just like this idea you've got there about controlling the narrative and feeding parents this information. What sort of other things do you think directors of sport can do to give their parents that personalised experience?
Well, I guess I've got 2 children and they're very different. They're both playing a lot of sport because they're at private school, so they're going to get exposed to a lot of sport, but their thought processes are completely different. And my daughter, she probably needs different things to my son. So I think providing opportunity to fulfill their potential is probably the most is a key driver. So as a parent, I don't want to feel like my son or daughter are being held back for either bureaucracy or politics. So if I feel like a kid's been held back because someone can't be bothered to have the conversation with the art teacher, well, that's not really a good answer, from paying 20 grand a year or 40 grand a year. So I think that's easier said than done because I understand how senior management teams work. But if you've got the buy-in from the senior management team on this is how we want to approach extracurricular activity or sport, for example, then giving opportunities I think is really important because if going back to that, parents have made the decision and a big part of it is sport, and then they're feeling like that their child's opportunities are limited, that's not ideal.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think if you can show that you understand the children, so I understand that your daughter wants to have, enjoy the experience, but I understand your son maybe still wants to enjoy the experience, but he's stretched it more. If I can show you that I care, then that makes a big difference. Well, we've had 10 minutes there, James. That's gone really, really quickly. Thanks so much for that. Hopefully it'll be really useful for directors of sport, and we really appreciate your time. So thank you.